if you are at an entry level job, or if you are at, in the first 5 years of your career and you're applying to these companies, and if you think that those jobs have thousands of applicants, here is how you can stand out. Most people who come to the US come for STEM courses, because then you can stay and work for 3 years on your student visa. To get here, right, again, you can either build a startup in India and pitch to one of the VCs here. You will be able to also then come here and work and build your company here. There is something called Y Combinator. I know of a lot of people who've built their company in India. They've come here to pitch at Y Combinator, and then they've set up their companies here. So if you're someone who's motivated, I would not even put like you don't need to be the smartest of the individuals to come here. There's a huge amount of risk taking. Like, that's probably one thing that I saw was different, at least for me personally, was how failure is not only tolerated, it is celebrated. People wear failure as a badge of honor here, and then go on to the next idea. I worked at a gaming company. Gaming is fun. Like, we love playing games, and it's very interesting to actually be. It sort of brings in your creative juice. If you're a programmer, I think this is one place where you would actually end up using all your programming skills. There's a good chance that you have all of the skills, but you have not put it right in your resume, and you don't get picked. And so I was like, okay, how do we make it simple? And what we built was, hey, can we help people scale editing their resume? Can we make it in such a way that all they have to do is bring in the job description, get the keywords, if that keyword applies to you, add it to the resume, and then generate it, right? Like, that was the basic mantra. If you are very early in your career and want to like just get like just trying to figure out what you want to do and how you want to sort of progress, I think this is a very good website to see what exactly what roles exist in most of these companies. So this is within software engineering. So if you look at this, salary start from $95,000 and go all the way up to like 500K. 500K is like what? 4 crores. Do not be limited by your imagination. Do not be limited by your surrounding thinking that, hey, because I've not seen something happen, or because I've only seen people from IIT get into Google, that others can't. I've seen people who have not gone to premier colleges also get into these companies. Google cares about building the best product, period. Right? And they want the best engineers. And how do you become that best engineer? Right? That is what matters. I would also say, like, if people are not giving you internship, go do free internships. Like, don't ask for a paycheck if you can. If you've not learned how to learn new things, you are going to have a tough time.
Hello guys, welcome to another interesting episode of Inside the Job with Shreyas. Hegde. Today we have Anish Hegde with us. Anish is a software engineer by profession and is currently working at Grammarly in the US. So in this episode, Anish is going to talk about how you can excel as a software engineer, and especially if you're looking forward to go to the US and get into Silicon Valley or any other parts of Bay Area, this episode is going to be the one for you. So stay tuned, watch till the end, and subscribe to my channel for more updates like this. Welcome to the show, Anish.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
So, Anish, please explain who exactly is a software engineer and what he does.
Yeah, awesome. So, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I've seen your previous episodes, and I'm so glad that you're doing this. Delighted to see how this will be really useful for people. Coming to software engineer, who's a software engineer? Of course, software engineering is like a vast field. There are so many different roles in it. But if you have to break it down into a single definition, I would say someone who uses some computer science principles, some engineering principles, to end up building a software product or testing or maintaining it, right? So all of these sort of boil down to software engineering.
You have started your journey from India, from Bangalore, and after your studies, you worked there for some time, and then you moved to Bangalore, then to US, and to Silicon Valley. So can you elaborate on your journey? How has it been?
Sure. Actually, let me start with the story. So the first time I got a laptop was in my first year of engineering, 2009. I went to NMMIT NITE. So when I got it, I started exploring what's happening in the world and stuff. I I got introduced to this concept of Silicon Valley. I saw that all of these awesome companies that I was using at that point. So, for example, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, all of these companies were originating in this place called Silicon Valley. So, in my head, I'm like, wow, what is this wonderland that I really want to go and check out? Of course, then I started blogging. I started doing a bunch of things back in 2009. Uh, that got me more interested in the world of technology. What really changed it for me was back in 2010. So I did my electronics and computer science, electronics and communications engineering. And while doing that, I realized that I wanted to do a lot of projects. I could not, in fact, gather enough amount of money to actually build the projects because they're really expensive, right? Uh, so after spending about 15,000 rupees on a project, I just gave up and I'm like, okay, it's going to take another 15,000 and I don't have the money for it. So I was looking at other competitions to actually go for, and I saw like a programming competition at MIT Manipal. So me and my friends, we sat overnight, we built a small, project, and then we went to that competition, and we were competing against computer science students across Manipal and NITK and NITE and all of these different big colleges, premier colleges. And to our surprise, we actually won that competition. So we made about 15,000-20,000 rupees from that competition. And so it got me thinking. I'm like, wow, I've spent so much time and money trying to build like an electronics project, and here I worked on something one night before a competition without knowing a lot about computer science, and we went and won. And so that got me thinking, and
What
I
did you build?
mentally switched. So this was basically a Firefox extension. So at that point, Firefox was more prominent than Chrome.
Okay.
Chrome was just ascending, but Firefox was like the thing. And so we had to build like an extension for shopping. And a lot of people built a lot of fancy things, right? So they would scrape all the top websites and get information and show. What we did differently was we're like, uh, we knew we didn't have the knowledge to actually build something very sophisticated. So we built something that had really good user experience. And we showed how easy it is for someone to use the tool that we built to actually search across different platforms. And so we focused on that a lot, and less on the technical side of it. And I think that resonated a lot with the judges, and they were like, okay, this makes sense. This is something that I would use right away and something that would give me a lot of value. And yeah, and that's how we won. So I was very surprised. And, that's the switch where I was like, okay, I'm doing electronics and communication, but I don't see where I would enjoy working within that field. So, or that didn't exist at that point. Of course, now the scene has changed in India. There's a lot of electronics and communication companies and all of that. But yeah, in second year, I'd switched my mind. Like I'm like, okay, I'm doing computer science. I'm doing all of these projects, and yeah, that got me started. So yeah, um, back then I also went to something called a Yahoo Open Hack. Yahoo was still a huge organization at that point, and had a huge presence in India. They had hackathons every single year, and it was called Yahoo Open Hack. And so I found out about it from a friend of mine, and we went there. Of course, I didn't have a great idea at that point, but when I went there, I saw how it was a completely different environment. It felt like a a rock concert for nerds, right? And I was one of the biggest nerds at that point, right? And for me, just to see how people were coming up with random ideas and productionizing it, or at least making like a prototype at the end of the hackathon, uh, it felt surreal. And to see all of that happen, I'm like, wow, I need to be here. Like there's just no other place I want to be. So yeah, I mean, these were two defining moments for me to actually move into computer science, and then also got me very attached to this idea of Silicon Valley. I really want to know what's different. Why is Silicon Valley actually building all of these companies, right? But even at that point, I had no idea that I wanted to go to the US and study there or something. Because for me, that was a very far-fetched idea. You should think about it this way: that the better part of my adulthood, I spent in a small town called Karkala in India, and of course, like that's a great place, amazing place, but I did not have the inspiration to actually get to
Right.
the US. I just didn't know. Forget inspiration. I just didn't know that that's possible, right? And when you and everyone around you are not thinking that way, you wouldn't actually make it a priority to get there. Yeah. Of course, I knew people were going to study and all in the US, but again, I really loved where I was. I really loved. I was working at Udupi at that point. It like just to give a brief explanation of that area to people who are not from Udupi and Karkala. It's literally like you're living in a resort. Like you would spend thousands of dollars or lakhs of rupees to get to a resort, and here you are in such a beautiful place, and you get to also work there, and you get to be around people you love. So mentally I was like, hey, this is the place I'm going to live and die here, and this is awesome. Like we used to go to play on private beaches on every weekend and have the best food ever, right? So yeah, mentally I didn't know that there was an opportunity for me to go and come to the US. And things changed when I went to Bangalore. When I went to Bangalore for my work, that's where I met a lot of people, and they were very motivated to go to the US. Of course, in my head, I was like, okay, great, it's a great place, but I wasn't motivated at that point. But then I saw that there was another big barrier, is money, right? Like, hey, how do you cough up, whatever, 50 to 70, 80 lakhs, whatever it takes to get to the US, right? And I'm like, I just don't have the money for that. But it so happened that once I made up my mind, gave my GRE, I had signed up on a website, and they sort of give information to banks. So the folks from HDFC Credila, they came to my office, said, hey, here is a loan for 40 lakhs. You don't have to keep any collateral. You don't have to keep, you don't have to, put your house as a collateral or your land as a collateral, and you can just go do your masters and then pay back once it's done. So that part happened out of the blue, and then I was like, okay, there's no looking back. So it was very easy for me to actually then make the call to come to the US. So yeah, in short, kid in Karkala does not know something like this can be done, comes to Bangalore, figures out everyone's doing it, and then the bank comes to home and gives me a loan, and that's how I ended up in the US.
Okay. So Anish, about going to the US or let's say Silicon Valley or any other place for a software engineer. So what does he have to do to get there? Does he have to go for a master's degree and then get into a job, or can he directly go and approach companies and apply for companies? And what is the money part? Like, how much is the investment that would be required? Can you just break all these things down?
Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple of things here. Let's unpack them. One thing is, if you're coming to the US for studies, right? If you're coming for studies, there are different courses that one would do. One thing to keep in mind is there is something called STEM and there is non-STEM courses. STEM is basically science and technology and all of those courses. And some courses are not STEM courses. So most people who come to the US come for STEM courses because then you can stay and work for 3 years on your student visa. Um, so if you would be coming here for masters, again, there are different colleges or different pedigree and different levels and different courses. And so there's a huge variance of what one could do. People generally come here for software engineering, for computer science. They'll come here for computer engineering, mechanical, civil, all of the engineering functions that you see in India. So yeah, you would see people come for all of them. Again, prices vary. Like if you would go to Stanford or some of these top universities, they're private universities, very expensive. They can cost you anywhere from 1 to 2 crores to just do your masters. If you would go to state universities, it could cost you anywhere about 30 to 40 lakhs. And then if you do anything in between, you see the range, right? Again, some people get scholarships, so they're able to pay through that. If you are in computer science and software engineering, and if you get a good internship in like Silicon Valley or Bay Area, then you can pretty much cover 1 or 2 semesters worth of tuition. So that's like 1 year's tuition that you can cover. Some people work on campus and are able to sort of cover their day-to-day needs. Uh, but yeah, it has varied a lot. And so in my personal case, it's gone well over 40 lakhs. So I was lucky that I got an internship and I could pay off a lot of it. But yeah, it's almost, tuition plus stay, crossed about, I think 60 or 70 lakhs or something. Again, those numbers look big, but once you come here and then you start, doing internships and stuff, you're able to pay it back. But yeah, again, finances are different for every person. So if a bank is able to give you, or if your parents have, like a lot of people come here, their parents fund their education, so there's less of a pressure. But yeah, financial situation depends. It differs from people to people. So in my case, it was mostly either bank, a little bit my parents helped out, and then my internship was able to do a bunch of it. So that is entering through masters. A lot of people also get here for bachelors now. A lot of people spend about 4 years, and that is again going to cost you about 1.5 crores, depending on which university. Again, if you get scholarship, you can get it done in like 20, 30, 40 lakhs. So this is an investment, and if you take a STEM course, you can work here for 3 years, especially in masters. I'm not very sure about bachelors. Now, some people come here directly to work. So say if your company has an office in India, an office here. So for example, you would hear a lot of folks from Infosys coming and TCS coming here. And so that's another thing where you work there for a few years, and they would sort of either bring you in an H1B, or there are some companies who bring you on an L1 visa as well. And that happens quite a bit too. So yeah, there are different ways of coming to the US and working. Again, within the US, not all places have the same sort of job or roles or salaries and all of that. So again, that there's a huge variance as well. So you brought up Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is basically like the birthplace of all of these huge behemoths that sort of everyone uses, right? It helps everyone do their daily tasks. Like so yeah, here there is a huge culture of innovation, of actually finding out what's next, constantly churning. You can see today, as of now, you see this AI revolution and how things are changing. And like Nvidia is here, and like Google is here, and like OpenAI is here, and everyone's sort of trying to figure out what's the next big thing, right? And so there's a huge culture of innovation, huge culture of huge VC culture. VC is venture capitalists. So these are the folks who actually fund these companies. And there's a lot of risk taking. And so to get here, right, again, you can either build a startup in India and pitch to one of the VCs here. You will be able to also then come here and work and build your company here. There is something called Y Combinator. I know of a lot of people who've built their company in India, they've come here to pitch at Y Combinator, and then they've set up their companies here. So if you're someone who's motivated, I would not even put like you don't need to be the smartest of the individuals to come here. You just need to be motivated, and first of all you want to come here. That's a different thing. Like a lot of people would not.
Right.
But if you want to come here and if you're motivated, I think there are different ways to get here and work here.
Okay. So, talking about Silicon Valley, so you said there are large companies like Apple, there is Google, there is Nvidia, and OpenAI. So why do all these companies get into a same place like Silicon Valley? Why Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so it's very interesting, and I've asked this question myself, right? Like, uh, why are all these companies being born here? And I try to go into the history of it. Like, how did it develop, right? So just to give you a brief overview, Stanford is a huge school here. But what used to happen back in the days was a lot of people would graduate from Stanford and then go to New York to work. And the professors here were like, hey, why is this the case? Like, we should, retain all of this talent here so that the economy develops, right? So when people stay back, a huge economy develops in that area, and you're able to sort of sustain that city and town. So what they started doing is they started investing in some ideas. And they started, for example, they also got a lot of funding from I think the American military or Navy into some research projects. And that's where semiconductors were born, right? Like, um, so I don't remember the name, but I think it was Fairchild Semiconductor. That was like one of the first companies that was formed, became very successful. The folks who worked there, they broke off and built other companies. And so Intel was one of the companies that were built from that. So the founder of Intel also then went on and became a venture capitalist. And what happens is that because they got someone funded their early idea and their company became huge, they also feel like, hey, this is the right way to move, right? They also want to then go and fund other companies and try and get try and help people, and then B, also they see that asymmetrical growth. So if you really want to be hugely successful in life, you need that asymmetry in life, right? Some asymmetrical growth in life. And so they see that. So over time, what's happened is that founders make a lot of money, then invest in more companies, and then become VCs and all of that. So you see that cycle happen. And so there's a huge amount of risk taking. Like, that's probably one thing that I saw was different, at least for me personally, was how failure is not only tolerated, it is celebrated. People wear failure as a badge of honor here, and then go on to the next idea. So basically what that does is it does not stop you from getting up and shaking off and then do that again, right? And even when venture capitalists and people, investors, who are looking at these founders, they're like, okay, this person has made a mistake, has lost the money, but has learned a lot in that journey, and now he is more wiser and will be able to go and build a better company. So that's the thought process. And so here it's a cocktail of risky investors, interesting ideas. And what it also does is, because all of this is happening here, and because it has built a name for itself, a lot of motivated people from across the world keep coming here. So the amount of people, like if you see more than six, I think I don't know the exact statistics, but about 50-60% of all the companies coming up here have like an immigrant founder, right? And so you see that happen a lot. So it's like one thing leads to another, and so there is a huge pool of motivated engineers, founders, investors, money. So everything comes together, and then people end up building all of these innovative products. It's a very interesting, it's a interesting combination of things for it to happen. And this is where I take inspiration from too. Like, I come from a college town, and I feel like, hey, we should build something like this there. Like, why can't Silicon Valley come out of Karkala, you know? And so
Yes.
that's the one thing that runs in my mind. Yeah.
Right. So, so Anish, you have worked in various types of companies. Like initially, it was gaming, and then uh, uh, now it's Grammarly, and you have worked in Yahoo. So, can you break down on what are the different types of companies that are available uh, for a software engineer, and how to choose?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, I've worked in like what do you call a service industry or a consultancy. I worked at a gaming studio. I worked at a product company within India, and then a product company and a bunch of product companies in the US. The work that you do is quite different in almost all of these. And people might enjoy it differently, right? So when I worked at a service company, the awesome part was you had clients, and then every project was almost new, and so you would get to work on all these new ideas and work on new technologies and build all of that out. And it was a lot of fun. um, if so basically, what is a service industry? So basically, there would be a client, and then you would be providing a service to them. Again, this service might vary. In our case, it was we were building software products for them, and so they would come with requirements, and then we would take that requirement and analyze it and try and say, okay, this is what we're going to build it out, give it out in milestones, and sort of then release it. So that's what service industry is. And so a lot of people really enjoy working there because you get to work on all these different things and work with all these different clients. Um, so the upsides is, yes, you get to work on all of these different ideas and with companies. Probably the one downside that I can think about is sometimes because it's a client, and you have to sometimes stretch. You have to sometimes try to deliver it right before the deadline. Sometimes you miss the deadline, and so that sort of adds slightly more stress. So that's the thing. That's service industry. Then I worked at a gaming company. Gaming is fun. Like, we love playing games, and it's very interesting to actually be. It sort of brings in your creative juice. If you're a programmer, I think this is one place where you would actually end up using all your programming skills. Because what happens is, when you're building a service or a product, you generally end up not using a lot of your programming skills because a lot of these libraries are pre-built. All you do is connect all of them. But at gaming company, I think that's something that I enjoyed quite a bit, where you're learning all these algorithms and actually implementing it, and you see it in work, especially the kind of games that I played in, worked in. The other thing is, like, because you're working in a gaming company, there's a gaming culture. So almost all gaming companies that I know of, they play games in the evening. So there was like a huge Counter Strike sort of LAN party and all of that. So that's one thing. If I have to think about the probably the disadvantages of working at a gaming company, is that you have to churn out a lot of features all the time, a lot of new features within games. So what that does is, the more features you add, it's sort of like the better the game gets. And so then you end up working on these features on a very regular basis, and you have like short sort of deadlines to get them out. So maybe, like, again, you might end up stretching. So again, depends. Now, every company is different. The company I worked in was quite good. So once you go home, you don't get disturbed and stuff like that. But then I've heard of people working at gaming companies where you're just stretched thin because you have to keep churning out these features, and it's an endless cycle. Product companies are great. I This is something that I really enjoy working on. So what do product companies do? Product companies is basically, you build out a product, and so you don't work for a client. You're basically selling this product directly to a customer or to an enterprise. And so one good thing is like you're actually focusing on the problem area and you start understanding that problem area really well. You're able to sort of understand how to scale, how to fix issues in that particular area. And generally, product companies are not bound by certain timelines, so it's not like you have to get something done within a certain time. And so that's a good thing. Probably the disadvantage is, yes, because you're working on that one product, at sometimes like you want to try out something new or add a new technology to it. It's not as easy or advisable, right? Because now you have a product that's already selling. You would not really
Right.
do much over there. On the other hand, you would go deep into the technology, right? You would say, okay, this is what is working on this, so let me try to optimize it. So you do a lot of optimization work, you do a lot of A/B testing, experimentation, all of that. So you understand, basically, you understand the user better and how they're using it and optimize it quite a bit. So yeah, so, and because there are no deadlines, maybe that suits certain kinds of people. Usually, product companies go on their own deadline. They say, okay, this is when we'll release it, and then they end up releasing at that point.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the three companies I've worked at, so I can probably make distinctions on this. I might not be aware of other kinds of industries as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the company that you have founded, the Resume Puppy. Um, how is it helping students or people in this industry to apply for jobs or build their resumes? Can you explain?
Yeah, glad to go into that. So okay, why did I build Resume Puppy, right? So when I was when I came to the US, I already had about 5 years of experience, again, in gaming, service, and product companies. So I was very confident that, hey, I should get an internship. It's not a big deal. Like, all of these guys, they don't have any experience whom I'm competing with. I should easily get an internship. And I start applying, and I don't hear back. And I'm applying and applying and applying, and I'm not hearing back. And then I see everyone's applying to hundreds of companies. Like, I know of people who don't sleep if they don't apply to 30 companies. And I was very surprised. Like, why is my resume not getting picked up? Like, what's happening? Like, I have all of this experience. Like, aren't they reading it? Are they, checking it out? So yeah, after a lot of struggle, I actually cold message director at Yahoo, and I get through. I get my interview and all of that. But I get my internship. I'm lucky I got it. Then I could pay off a lot of my tuition. So after that, I started thinking, like, why did this happen, and how can we avoid this from happening again? And that's when I realized that. At least for some of these entry level jobs, internships, and even like jobs that get more than 50 applications, what happens is that there is something called an applicant tracking system. So basically, it's a software, any software. And so when people are actually searching or trying to figure out, okay, who is the best candidate, because you should think of it from their side, right? They're getting like 1,000 resume or 10,000 resumes for every single job opening, and especially in India, that could be even more acute because the competition is even bigger. And so when they get that many, they can't humanly possibly check each resume, right? So what they do is they have something called a boolean, and then they put a keyword, and then they try and get, okay, is there a keyword match within all of these candidates? And so when they do that, there's a good chance that you have all of the skills, but you have not put it right in your resume, and you don't get picked. And so I was like, okay, how do we make it simple, and how do we make it such that you can scale? Because we were applying to whatever, 20, 30, 40 companies a day. It's impossible to change your resume. And the other thing is, like, for example, each job has a job description, and if the job description has a certain skill mentioned in a certain way, the recruiter is actually searching for those skills, right? And so you might have those skills, but you have not represented it that way on your
In the resume.
resume. Yeah. So what we built was, hey, can we help people scale editing their resume? Can we make it in such a way that all they have to do is bring in the job description, get the keywords, if that keyword applies to you, add it to the resume, and then generate it, right? Like that was the basic mantra. And so yeah, that's something that we built, and we pitched it within UTD. So I was studying still, so we pitched it. We won $25,000. That was like a Shark Tank style pitching competition.
Right.
So we won that, and then we sort of ended up building the whole thing out. It's helped quite a bit of people. It was funny because I went to visit my wife's that time fiance's college, and I was at a function, and then we were just talking to someone, and they're like, "Oh, you worked on Resume Puppy? I use it every single day." So that was good to know that it at least helped that one person. So that's the one person I know really.
Actually,
But
even
yeah.
I have used it.
Oh, you have? Okay. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that was the main intention. Of course, I've not since gotten time to work on it in the last few years, but yeah, I hope it helps a lot of people. And even if you don't use it, I have a few tips for resumes, right? One thing is, if you are at an entry level job, or if you are at, in the first 5 years of your career and you're applying to these companies, and if you think that those jobs have thousands of applicants, here is how you can stand out, right? One thing is, look into their job description. Everybody spends so many hours writing those job descriptions, and they need those particular skills. See if you have those skills. Okay, if you have those skills, please add it to your resume before sending it out. Second thing is, if you don't have those skills, and if you think you can easily acquire them, you can do a course and acquire them, please do it. A, you are up leveling yourself. B, you can now add it to the resume, and then you can get a good chance of standing out. The other thing is, do not completely rely on your resume. And it is ironic because I built Resume Puppy, but I would say do not entirely rely, because that's a good place you can keep applying. But figure out who are these people making decisions, who are hiring, and try to cold message them, and try to get in front of them. Again, when you send 100 cold messages, you might get 2 responses or 1 response, depending on whom you're sending it to. But try and fire on all cylinders, right? Do not just rely on one thing. uh, it's very interesting. The other thing that I have told other folks, and which has helped them a lot, is trying to go and look at startups, because it's a chicken and egg problem. Because sometimes they'll say, hey, we want people with experience, and you don't have experience. But we are like, okay, if you don't hire us, how will we have experience? So it's like a cyclic problem. How do you solve that? The way you solve that is try and reach out to these startups. You can go to AngelList. I think they've changed their name to some Well-Found or something. But AngelList has a bunch of startups listed on their site. Again, the name has changed, so I might not be current. You can go to Product Hunt. A lot of startups put their new product initiatives there. Try and find the CEO. Okay, their email ID, and it's easy to get them on the internet now if you work hard enough. Make a list of it and try and see if you're really interested in their idea, right? Like some people usually build a sample project very similar to the idea, and say, hey, this is what I built, I think this feature will look good in your product. Or, hey, this is the design I built for your product, I think this will look good. So what that does is, for the founder, it shows initiative and says that, hey, this person has built this for my company and has taken time out. I might as well talk to this person, if not give them an interview, right? So there are different ways to actually get attention, because that's all you need, right? Like, attention is something that is very sparse, and you need that from these founders or decision makers. So how do you get there, right? So try to be more innovative on how you get their attention. So in my case also, when I was reaching out to this director at Yahoo, I said, hey, I have built apps that have been downloaded over 200,000 times. I just sent that one sentence that actually catches attention. And then next I would do my ask and say, hey, I'm looking out for a internship, uh, and it looks like you're hiring for it. Would you be interested to have a conversation? You don't need to have a long cold message, because generic, everyone, like, I get a ton of cold messages every day. I just can't get through them because your life happens, you're busy. But if you're able to get that attention from people, uh, and then have a conversation, I think that'll get you the job that you want.
So those of you who want to use Resume Puppy website, the link is in the description. You can just follow it and build your resumes. And Anish, you have worked in various companies in India as well as in the US, and also in different positions and roles. So, what are the different compensation levels that a person can expect in India and in the US, and also uh, in within the US, in Silicon Valley and outside?
Yeah, perfect. Let me help break that down. We can make this a working session. Uh, there is this awesome website. So can I share?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. There is this really good website called levels.fii. So if you have not checked this is mainly for the tech industry, but I can probably go over some basic roles here. So one thing is, let's look at what roles exist in the industry, right? So for example, within technology, if you're a software engineer, there are a bunch of different things that one could do. See, from machine learning to security to iOS, mobile development, game development, blockchain, DevOps, networking. And so if you're very early in your career and want to like just get like just trying to figure out what you want to do and how you want to sort of progress, I think this is a very good website to see what exactly what roles exist in most of these companies. So this is within software engineering. And if you come down, you'll also see product designer. Now product designer is another role that is quite popular and is very, very important in the industry. So this person would actually help um, gather more information about how this product is going to be built, and then sort of build out mocks and designs and talk to users and all of that. So even within that, there are a bunch of things, right? Like for example, interaction designers, user experience, usability, people who design for web and mobile, data visualization, etc. Um, then there is product managers. Within product managers also, again, there are a bunch of different cuts. So these are the different different types of product managers. Again, after that, there are a bunch of other things like data scientists, engineering managers, security analysts, technical writers, sales engineers, a bunch of them. Then even within business, you'll find a lot of. So this is in the technical industry. Also, you'll find people in business. Of course, it's not here, but venture capitalist is one. You also have like inbound sales, outbound sales. Then there is marketing departments in tech companies. So basically, you'll have life cycle marketing, all of those. So you can basically get into a bunch of different areas within the tech industry. So it's not just limited to a software engineer in this industry. Now, if I were to actually go and look at the salaries, right? Now, before this, I want to actually preface this with um, how these numbers might sound inflated. The income tax if you're working in the Bay Area, you have to pay a state income tax and then a federal income tax. So your income tax is usually about anywhere from between 30 to 40%. So when you get your paycheck, you see that almost half of it is gone, right?
Right.
In most cases. So that's why when in India, I would hear that, hey, someone's got 1 crore package in the US or 1.5. Of course, it sounds really good, but that's not the reality, because almost 40% 50% of it is cut. And even the bonus component, right, you almost get a 40-50% cut on that. So don't take it as is. The other thing I really want to highlight is between India and the US, the luxuries are very different. For example, here, if you make even 200K dollars, which is what 1.6 crores in India, even if you make that much, there is a good chance that you will not be able to hire a house help or a driver or all of that. You have to do all your work yourself. So the thing is, in India, at a fraction of that cost, you will still be able to afford a cook and a cleaner,
Right.
and all of that. So you should keep that in mind when you're actually making these comparisons, that uh, every place has its advantage and disadvantage, and there's no real winner as such. There is no quote unquote winner. So yeah, let's go to by location. So let's look at San Francisco Bay Area and software engineering. Now, again, these let's just okay, here they are. So these salaries again vary a lot. Different companies would offer differently. For example, you have FANG companies. This is like Facebook. Now it's called MAGA, Meta, and all of that. So these companies have really good salaries and really good stock options. And then there are startups who are actually competing with them, which will have even slightly better compensation and base and stuff like that, because they have to compete with these companies to get the best talent. And then there are other companies that are really well established and they don't really want to pay these high salaries. And so again, things vary a lot. Okay. So if you look at this, salaries start from $95,000 and go all the way up to like 500K. 500K is like what? 4 crores. Yeah, 500K is like 4 crores. Again, this is with the stock and the base salaries. And so these are, again, not everyone makes that. It's like you have to be very senior and have worked in the industry for a lot of time. Again, depends. Some companies, for example, Netflix, they give top of the market compensation, and they have very little stock that they provide. They provide all base. And then there are some companies like startups where the base salaries might be less, but I mean, these are early startups, not mid level startups, but they'll have a huge stock component. So you might end up owning 0.1% of the startup, or 1% of the startup, or whatever, right? 0.5% of the startup. Which is huge if the company actually makes money. So there's various levels of risk. So, okay. Let's just look at levels, right? So basically you will have different levels. So for example, most companies will start with like L1, L2 and things like that. And then you can see the salaries over here. So which companies pay the highest, which companies pays the lowest. So if you go to the lowest salary, so here you can actually filter it out and you see that, okay, it starts, because average salaries in California ranges from like $40,000-$50,000. So this is like very early engineers. See, everyone has 1 year of experience. Some are skewed, but you can see that. Now, if you go to the highest compensation, you'll see this person is getting $6.9 million. $6.9 million at Roblox. And so this person gets paid 270K base salary and then 6.6 million in stock. So if you see it, it's not that this person is getting all of it in base, but of course their stock is quite valuable as well. And this person has 24 years of experience and six at the company. And one more thing to differentiate between India and at least Bay Area is that here you can grow as an IC. IC is basically individual contributor. So you can be a software engineer all your life and still make huge amount of salaries and you will have huge amount of influence within the company. Whereas in the companies I've worked in earlier, it's basically as a software engineer, you have a cap and then you have to get into management. You have to become a manager, you have to become, director and a VP and all of that. Here, you can actually grow as a software engineer. You will be at the level of a VP or at the level of a director. Of course, you would not have probably direct like reportees, but you will still have a lot of influence within the company to actually make significant changes. So if you look at it, this guy here or girl here is an IC6. That means they're an individual contributor at level 6, have worked for 24 years and 6 years at the company, and they are making $6.9 million. That's huge.
Yeah.
Roblox again is a gaming company, so that's another advantage of a gaming company. Of course, a lot of work, but there's a good chance that you you will get paid well as well. And if you look at this game development, API development, full stack, distributed system, so you can see which are paying really high. Of course, a lot of people are talking about ML and AI, and that pays really high. Of course, it does, but it's not limited to it. It's not just ML and AI. There are other industries that are paying really well. Uh, let's go to the next one. If you look at this person is a mobile engineer, iOS engineer, and 10 years of experience at Facebook. They're getting 389K base and 1.5 million stock. Again, another thing about stock is like if you joined early and the stock price has gone up, then suddenly your stock compensation has gone up, right? Like for example, Nvidia, people joined at a very low, maybe the stock was in the hundreds. Today it's at 800 or 900 when we are recording this. So that can vary a lot. So these are really high salaries. Of course, this is not the average. This is not what everyone is getting paid. On an average, you would see people getting paid around 150 to 250, 300 when it comes to the first 10 years of experience, and then that sort of grows up. Of course, if you're a distinguished engineer, principal engineer, these are the salaries you can expect after a few years of work, right? At 20, 15, 20 years of work. So these are not really mid-level salaries or entry-level salaries. So if you see, everyone has like 20, 30 years of experience, but it gives you a good idea. Now, if you go to Bangalore, and let's look at USD itself. All right, it starts from as low as $744 a year, and if you actually see who's paying the maximum, it goes to up to 332K. That's a lot of money when you compare, based on purchase parity. Like 300, K goes a really long way, right? What is 300K? 2.4 crores. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. 3 into
India.
8.
In India, it's big.
Yeah, it's huge. And and the luxuries that you can get for a fraction of this amount is insane, right? Like even at, say, even if you're making 1 lakh a month or even 60,000 a month, you can still afford someone to come home and clean and cook and all of that. So those luxuries you can't compare, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, look at the companies that are hiring, right? These are again American based, Silicon Valley based companies: Intel, Intuit, Uber, Rippling, Adobe. Again, these are like very high experience. I think in this person, Rippling, this is not. But again, Rippling is a startup, so they have a huge stock comp as well. Stripe, Walmart, and so in India also, people are paying a lot of money. Google is paying a bunch of money, and so again, we are looking at the cream de la cream, right? Like the highest levels of compensation. So why I wanted to show this is, as a person from a small town and having gone to some of these companies, I did not know that this is possible. And I thought that only IITs and people who go to premier colleges, this is possible. But I very well see my friends in India now who spent 10 years working at different companies, making a bunch of money working within India. And I just want to say to a person who does not think that this is possible, I just want to say that, hey, if you work hard, it is possible. There are a few things you need to focus on that will get you there, right? Do not be limited by your imagination. Do not be limited by your surrounding thinking that, hey, because I've not seen something happen, or because I've only seen people from IIT get into Google, that others can't. I've seen people who have not gone to premier colleges also get into these companies. Because if you look at these companies, and especially core software engineering companies, of course, pedigree matters. I'm not saying pedigree doesn't. IITs are awesome colleges, and they have the best professors and the best students, and like the most talented, motivated people go there. And of course, like if I was Google, I would hire IITs first. But having said that, Google cares about building the best product, period, right? And they want the best engineers. And how do you become that best engineer, right? That is what matters. And you can be from any university, any college, and I'm telling you, the universities, at least the one that I went to, I really enjoyed, and I think they're really great. It's just that we as students needed to work really hard to figure this out. So one thing is, if you're an aspiring software engineer, how can you actually get here, right? Like that's the question.
Right.
One thing is, there is something called data structures and algorithms. They are very important. Most of these companies, to make recruiting very easy, they've sort of made this like the standard. Of course, I'm not too keen on it, but something that you have to get by. If you are really good at data structures and algorithm, most of these companies, first round, second round, third round, will only be on that most of the times. So that really helps. What my personal favorite is to actually build projects. Build projects, put it out there, get people to use it, because that shows true intention of actually wanting to learn how things are done in real world. Because I don't know, maybe the syllabuses have changed now, but I used to see these headlines when I graduated back in 2013 that, hey, we are graduating so many engineers, but almost 80% of engineers are not hireable. Okay, and it's somehow the engineer's fault because they needed to be better at something. Yes, I think we should not rely completely on syllabus anymore. I think we need to take it in our own hands, build our own projects, put it out there, learn what's going on new, what people are actually talking about, what projects can get you hireable. A very, very good way to know what to build and where to start is actually look at the company you want to join. Like, say if you want to join, say, Uber, see what technologies they're using, build projects on that. So now that adds to your resume again, adds to what you will know, and help you sort of build that profile. I would also say, like, if people are not giving you internship, go do free internships. Like, don't ask for paycheck if you can. Of course, like, if your financial situation is really tough and you can't stay with your parents, you don't have money, that's a different thing. But if you have the basic luxury of having your parents take care of you, just go and do free internships, learn as much as possible. Optimize your 20s to just learn at least as much as possible from other folks, because I think that education is priceless. Because you, even if you pay money, you wouldn't get something like that.
Right.
Don't get, like, of course there are times when I say I haven't gotten a job or I've not gotten an internship, I felt really sad and I'm like, okay, all bogged down. But the only way that you can excel is if you're continuously learning, continuously building something, continuously trying out new things. I don't see a better way to actually progress in this industry, because even once you get into a company, software is changing so quickly.
Right.
If you have not learned how to learn new things, you are going to have a tough time. Of course, there are other companies where you might not have to learn that quickly, but at least if you are joining a fast-paced company like the one I'm in now, or if you are in a top company, one of those FANG companies, you have to keep learning every day. Like, every day is going to be a challenge, and every day you have to learn how to overcome that. And that's why they're paying you this money, right? Like, there's nothing like, software engineering is not rocket science. It's not that tough. The reason all of these people joining these companies get paid a lot is because you have to be an expert problem solver. Like, that's it, period, right? And how do you learn to learn? And of course, I used to think like this compensation is only in the tech industry. Now that I got exposed to other industries as well, I see that if you're in the top layer in any industry, you're going to get paid this much. Like, this is just not limited to tech. The only advantage of tech is like you know um, like the middle and the early layer also get paid slightly good, but
Yes.
top layer gets paid well across the industry. So it's limited to just engineering. So yeah, I mean, that would be my advice. Like, hey, if you want to get into software engineering, learn algorithm and data structure. It's par for the course. Build projects, try to learn what other different technologies are there. try to make a good portfolio of your projects, and then reach out to these companies, reach out to startups, work for free if you're not getting a paid internship, work for free if you're not getting a job. Of course, not forever, but at least for like a limited period of time until you learn the technologies, learn, get that experience. And then, and then go ahead and work at these larger companies too. So yeah, that's basically
So,
it.
yeah. So, Anish, thank you so much for all your insights. You know, I think you have probably broken down everything that an aspiring software engineer would want, right from even if he wants to work in India or go to Silicon Valley. I think everything is covered in this podcast. So thank you so much for making this podcast so complete and so insightful. And yeah,
Thanks, Shreyas. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I'm rooting for you, man. Like I've been seeing all your podcasts, and I'm so glad I got to be part of one of your early podcasts. Looking forward to how this channel grows, and I hope that this was helpful for folks looking to sort of pursue software engineering.